So we completed 4 sessions. The first session, as a demo, we discussed about what is the meaning of this course, and we discussed about different cloud options for the customers. The second session discussed about P2P and O2C cycles. Third session, user and what roles need to be assigned to the user, what are the different type of instances or say pods we can have as a part of project. These points we discussed, and we created user also. The fourth session, we discussed about FSM, and by using FSM, functional setup manager, we created project. Before creating the project, we enabled the offerings and options, and we discussed the relevant points. So these are the 4 sessions we completed so far. Any questions from anyone on any one of the session or any topic, please? Any questions, please? Okay. Now let's talk about how to create the transactions. Any question? No question. How to create the transactions. How to create the transactions in the system. So we discussed in the P2P and O2C cycles, what does it mean by subledger applications, right? Other than GL, all applications we are calling as subledger applications. It could be subledger application or general ledger application. In any application, if you want to create the transactions, what we have to create in the system. Okay, what we have to create in the system. First, we'll see to create the transaction, what details we have to input in the system. If you are going to create any transaction, first you have to enter the date. Not only system, if you are going to record any transaction in the books in the more meaningful way, how we have to record any business transaction. That could be sales or purchases or any other business activity. We have to specify with the date, on which date we are doing that activity. Okay, date, and which activity we are doing. Activity is nothing but details of the transaction. Okay, details or say description. And we have to specify the transactions belongs to how much amount. This is a very, very basic information. So what are the transactions you are going to record? You have to address with the date, on which date you are performing that activity and which activity you are doing, or say details of transaction or description. And the transaction is whatever you are recording with how much amount. It can be sale or purchase or any other activity. You have to address with the amount also. So these 3 elements are very important. Okay, these 3 elements are very important. Take any application or you take any business scenario, even if you are going to write this information in the books, you have to capture the date, details of the transaction, and the transaction belongs to how much amount. These are very important. Now, when we are creating the transactions in our application, you have to keep this information ready in the system, so that when you are recording the transaction, by using that information, easily we can record the transactions. So first we will see how we can keep the date information ready in the system. So when you are recording the transaction, say today we are recording the transaction, we definitely will capture the today's date. Okay, today date is June 27th. When I select June 27th, that June 27th is belongs to which period? June period. So that means I am tracking the transaction with the date and period. When I am tracking the transaction with the date and period, the date and period is belongs to year also. That is 2020. So that means when you are recording the transaction is belongs to which date, the date is belongs to which period, the period is belongs to which year, all the details we have to capture in the system. So to capture the dates for the transactions, and the dates will belongs to periods, that means to maintain the periods which are belongs to specific year, what we have to do is we have to create the calendar in the system. Okay, we have to create the calendar in the system. So with the help of that calendar, okay, we can maintain the dates, periods and years, so that when you are recording the transaction you can use that information. How to create the calendar? How to create the calendar in the system? It's very simple. For which country client you are going to do the implementation, accordingly we have to create the calendar in the system. Say you are going to do the implementation for India client. Okay, you have one client from India and you are going to implement Oracle Fusion Cloud applications, and in that case we have to create the calendar for that client as per India financial year. If you are implementing for US client, the calendar we have to create as per US financial year. Okay, based on the country financial year, what point we have to consider? Financial year. So country financial year. How to create the calendar? For which country we are implementing, that country financial year we have to follow. Based on the country financial year, we can create the calendar. When you are creating the calendar, within the calendar, which period type you have to take? Whether we have to take daily period or weekly period, monthly, quarterly, hourly, yearly. So that also we have to finalize. Ideally, we create the calendars with monthly. Every month, companies, they can close that periods and they can settle any pending activities and all, then they'll move to the next period. End of the year, they close their books. Okay, so period type also we have to decide. I'll say period type. If you are doing the implementation for banks, financial institutions, for the financial institutions, we have to create the calendar by taking the period type as a daily. The reason, they close their books every day. End of the day, they settle everything. Other than banks, for any companies, okay, if you are going to create the calendar for implementation, we go with a monthly only. So that is a point we have to understand. So how we have to create the calendar? Based on the country financial year we have to create, and ideally we use the period type as monthly. In case of banks, we use the period type as a daily. Every day we take as a separate period. But normal cases, any other businesses, we take period type as monthly. If you take the period type as monthly, in specific financial year, how many periods you can have? Doesn't matter what is the country financial year. Any country financial year follows 12 periods in case of monthly calendar. So we can have it 12. So we are going to do the implementation for US client and we are using the period type as monthly. So we can create the periods 12 within that Jan to December. In case of India, what is our financial year? April to March. So 12 periods. So in the system, we have a flexibility to create more than 12. Even if you are going to use period type as monthly, you can create more than 12 periods. Okay, that means we can create additional periods. Monthly means per year 12. Could be any financial year, any country financial year, 12 periods. But in the system, we got a flexibility of creating more than 12. What are the additional period? What are the periods you are creating? Okay, those we are calling as additional periods. What is the purpose of these additional periods? To perform the adjustments. Okay, when we are closing the books in the end of the year, you may want to do the adjustments in the separate period. So you are just implementing for US client, you have to create the calendar from Jan to December. And at the end of the year, when they are closing the books, if they want to record some adjustment entries, okay, when they are closing their books for that entire year, if there are some adjustment entries which they want to track in the separate period, to record those transactions, they may use one additional period, so that we call as adjustment periods. Additional periods we call as adjustment periods. So this flexibility we have when we are creating calendar based on the period type. Yes, you can create the number of periods. Apart from that, you can create the additional periods also within the calendar. Those periods we call as adjustment period. To record the adjustment entries in the system, we can use those periods. So these are the few points we have to understand about calendar. The same calendar what we create in the system, you can call it as accounting calendar also. Why we are calling as accounting calendar? With which date we are going to record the transaction, with the same date we can create accounting entries also. Okay. So within the calendar we have a dates and periods. With the same date and with the same period we can create the accounting entries. The transaction is belongs to which accounts. Which account should get debit, which account should get credit. So that also we can manage by using the calendar. That we'll see and understand in the system. For now, the simple point is the calendar we can call as accounting calendar. So these are the few points which we have to understand. So first point is based on the country financial year, we have to create the calendar. And when you are creating the calendar, we have to choose what period type we required. Ideally monthly we use. And additional periods. What are the additional periods we create within the calendar? Those we call as adjustment periods. The purpose of adjustment periods are to perform the adjustment entries. So again, it is not mandatory. It is not compulsory. When they are closing the books, if you take US client, when they are closing the books in the December month, the adjustment entries they can record in the December month. Instead of recording the December adjustment transactions, adjustment entries in the December, if they want to track those separately in the different period, they can use the adjustment periods. Okay, this is what we have to understand. Any questions from anyone on these points, please?
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello, Ravi here. Actually, in EBS, maybe a little bit deviation, but somewhat related. Long back, what we did is we changed the calendar from April to March to January to December for one of the clients. Is that possible even here also, or maybe it's not much necessary to discuss, or there may be some chances, something like that we can say.
In EBS also you cannot change. How you change, you tell me.
What we did is, I remember actually this long back.
No. You cannot.
Whatever the future periods are there for those something we did.
No.
There is one there is one Metalink request also, a Metalink note also I saw, and actually the discussion happened with me too. I remember maybe almost 10 years.
Back. Once you decide, okay, ideally you have to create accounting calendar as per country financial year. You tell me how you created, how you changed, for which country you changed, what is the reason. You tell me these points, we'll discuss on that.
Sure. You can continue. I will come back definitely. Okay. I will look into those.
No issues. So I totally disagree your statement, but anyway, we'll discuss. Okay, the point for everyone is we never change the calendars. Okay, there won't be any business requirement. Always we create accounting calendars as per country financial year. Say for example, we implemented for Indian client. Now, say India is going to change their financial year from Jan to December. Okay, current financial year is April to March. If India is going to change their financial year from this actual financial year to Jan to December, in that case only will have a requirement of changing. Okay, so in that case we can talk to Oracle and Oracle can help, since that the changes need to be done since country financial year got changed. But general cases, always we create what is the country financial year, accordingly we'll create the calendar. That it is not based on the client business requirement. That's very important. Fine. Any other questions, please? We never change the calendar. That's very important. Okay, we never change the calendar. Once you start using the calendar, there is no option in the product itself, application itself. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
Please.
Yeah, Lakshman, this is Jawad here. I am new to this class. So this is the first time I'm attending this. So when you asked about this calendar change, so in US, there is that, you can have the calendar year type calendar from January through December. And then you can also have the fiscal year kind type calendar, right? From July.
One second. That's a different again. Okay. Okay, you may have a number of calendars. What I'm saying is you cannot change from one to other. That's what I'm saying.
Once you implement it, you cannot change, you're saying.
Exactly. You can see the proof in the system also. I'll take you through that. Okay, for now take this point and you will see the proof. Yep. You can have a number of calendars. That's a different story. Okay. So whatever calendar you are creating, that you cannot change.
Okay, so once the system is implemented, you cannot just go back. So the other person was saying that
they changed. That's the reason I just put some questions: why, when, where, how. He said he will come back later. Let's see that also. So, but you take as a part of your learning, take the reality. We never change. We cannot change also. Yep. Fine. Any other questions, please?
Lakshman, Jyotsna here. So in one of the clients I worked, so they had 13 period accounting calendar.
Yes. So I'm talking about the same. See, if you take period type as monthly, how many periods you can have in the calendar? It can be any
12 periods, right?
12. If you take one additional period.
Okay, so that last period is basically the adjustment period.
Yes.
That's why 13 period calendar.
Exactly. If you want to take 2 adjustment periods, your calendar will become 14 periods calendar. That's all.
Okay. And to answer to the question that other person asked about the changing in the calendar, right? So for the same client, they implemented calendar change project actually. So it's basically earlier their monthly period used to be from 17 to 16. 16th of the next month, but they wanted to change it to 1st to 30th. So there is no standard. Yeah.
So in that case, it's not calendar change.
Okay.
Period date range change. Calendar.
Oh, so that is different. Okay.
Yeah. Even that also Oracle won't recommend.
Yeah, we did not get any help from Oracle. It's completely
that's what we cannot do anything. They do with the product coding and all. Okay, they'll have a source code with them. With that they can do. For us, we cannot do. If somebody try to do it, there will be many data inconsistency issues. Whatever the transaction so far created, everything will get disturbed. And Oracle also won't help us.
Okay, so I think Fusion we cannot do it because EBS it allows backend updates and all, right? But Fusion it doesn't allow, right? So it's not possible?
No. It's, from front end also you can do the change. That system will allow. We should not do it. Only the date ranges,
okay.
not calendar, entire calendar. If you created, say, you created calendar from Jan to December. Okay. Now, if you want to change it to April to March, you cannot do that. But whatever you create from Jan to December, some dates if you want to modify, you can modify. Ideally, there won't be any need of modifying.
Okay, we can still modify. Okay.
Yes. We cannot do it. If there is some situation, you may take Oracle help and they can do it. Before that, whether that can be done or that should not be done, everything they'll tell us. But we cannot change the calendar as per system. In the exceptional cases, if situation demands, you may contact Oracle.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. But in that case, everything will get disturbed. That also how you want to proceed. Your client wants to proceed. That also they'll just ask the client. If client says okay, this is okay, that is okay, then only they'll help us on that. As per standard product, we cannot change the calendar once we create and once we start using. That's how.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Any other questions here, please? Done. So that's all about calendar we have to understand. We'll see in the system how to create. Okay, these 3 points we have to remember when you talk about calendar. Always calendar we have to create based on the country financial year. Nowhere we take the client requirement. Okay, it is not based on the client. If you are implementing for 100 US clients, for 100 US clients, you have to create the calendar as per US country financial year. That's all. No requirement we have to take. How you need calendar, this and that, not required. Okay, and period type. Ideally, we use the monthly period. So that period type you have to choose. If you are doing the implementation for banks, we use the period type as a daily, since they have a practice of closing the books daily basis. And additional periods, it is not mandatory. As a consultant, we recommend the clients to have at least one adjustment period. If they require, they can use in the end of the year when they are closing the books, or else even if you suggest, they may have one adjusting period, total 13 periods along with the 12 and 1, total 13. If they want, they can use it, or else they can ignore it. But generally we recommend them to have at least one adjusting period. If they say seriously we don't need, then we have to accept. So these 3 points we have to remember. How to create the accounting calendar and all we'll see in the system. Before that, we have to discuss few more points. Fine. So the first point is when you are creating the transaction, the date is important. We have to track each and every transaction with the date. For that, we need accounting calendar, or say calendar. And when you enter the amount, okay, when you enter the amount in the system, so the amount belongs to which currency you have to represent. Okay, when you record the transaction, say you enter 10,000. The 10,000 is what? 10,000 are rupees, dollars, or dinars. What exactly? This we have to address in the system. So to address in the system, we have to maintain the currencies in the application. Okay, next point is currencies. So when you record the transaction, what are the amount you are entering, that you have to represent with the currency. If you enter 100, 100 is rupees or dollars. If you enter 1,000, the 1,000 is dinars or something else. The currency measurement value we have to specify. The measurement means rupees, dollars, dinars. These all are the measurements which represents monetary values. So that we have to keep ready in the system. So what Oracle is doing is, Oracle is providing all the currency codes in the application. Okay. So for which countries Oracle is offering this solution, this product, for almost all the countries, Oracle is providing all the currencies. So that means we no need to create any currencies in the system. Okay. We don't need to create any currencies in the system. All the currency values Oracle is providing. Like if it is the US currency, they'll just give the currency name as USD. It is India INR. Okay. So that's how for every country they are providing the currency codes. USD, United States dollars, INR, Indian rupee. This is all for every country they are providing the currencies. We no need to create. When you talk about calendar, Oracle is not providing any calendar. We have to create. How to create? For which country we are doing the implementation accordingly, we have to create by considering these points. But when you talk about currency, we no need to create any currency. All currencies Oracle is providing. So what are the information Oracle is providing as a part of the applications? Okay, when we are going to deal with Oracle Fusion applications, what are the information, what are the data we see within the application? The data we call as seeded data. Remember this term. Okay, seeded data. What are the data we are not creating in the system, which we are getting from the application? What are the data you see directly in the application? Certain values, information that we call as seeded data. So currency also falls under seeded data. So we are not going to create any currencies. All the currencies information Oracle is providing. Whatever Oracle is providing, that we call as seeded data. So no currency values we have to create in the system. All the currencies information Oracle is providing. That is the reason we are calling it as seeded data. We get currencies information in the Fusion applications as a seeded data. This is the point we have to understand. Say now we are implementing for one of the US client. When we are implementing for one of the US client, so what is the currency we will use in US? USD. So if you are doing the implementation for US client, the USD currency is local currency. If you are implementing for India client, INR is local currency, right? For US, USD is local currency. For India, INR is local currency. For US, okay, for US, INR is the foreign currency. For India, USD is the foreign currency, right? So for every country, what are the currency, the local currencies they have? Apart from that, if they are going to deal with any other currencies, those all currencies they have to treat as foreign currencies. For India, USD is the foreign currency. For US, INR, rupee is the foreign currency. Okay, the first point is the local currency. For US, USD is the local currency, right? For USA, USD is the local currency. For India, INR is the local currency. For USA, INR is the foreign currency. For India, USD is the foreign currency. The local currencies we can call as functional currency. So USA local currency is USD, that you can call as functional currency. And India INR is the local currency that you can call as functional currency. Okay. Functional currency. And for, say you are doing the business only in India. Okay, you are running the business only in India. Sometimes you may deal with the suppliers and customers who are in the different countries. You have one supplier in US. So when you are dealing with that supplier, you have to pay maybe in the dollars. So in that case, you have to deal with the USD also. So INR is our functional currency. When you are dealing with the US supplier, we have to deal in the dollars. So USD we call as foreign currency. Okay. So wherever you are running the business, that country currency we call as functional currency, nothing but local currency. All other currencies we call as a foreign currencies. You take example of you are running the business in USA. USD is the functional currency. So all other currencies, wherever you are not doing the business, not doing the business means wherever you are not running the business. You may have a suppliers and customers in other countries. All other currencies you can call as foreign currencies. Say INR, okay, AED, GBP, Okay, so different. Take any other currency, those are all we call as foreign currencies. So this is a primary classification for currencies which you have to understand as per system. So we have two type of currencies. One is functional currency, other one is foreign currency. The country local currency we call as functional currency. Other than local currency, all currencies we call as foreign currencies. Here I'll take simple example. I'll enter value as 1,000. Enter value as 500 and 2,000. Now if I ask you the question, what is this 1,000? What is this 500 and 2,000? What do you think? There is no information about those, just those are numbers. Those can refer anything, but you have to address. I'll say this 1,000 is rupees. 2,000, I'll say dollars. Now you can understand. Okay, 1,000 is rupees, 2,000 is dollars. What about 500? That can be currency or may not be currency. So I'll say this 500 are marks. It could be anything, right? The value may be related to currency value or may not be related to currency. If not marks, I will say 500 square feet, or I say 500 kilograms or meters or miles. These all are measurements only. Rupee is the measurement for Indian currency. Dollar is the measurement for US currency. And marks also measurement. So these all are measurements. But when you talk about rupees, dollars, those measurements related to currency measurements. That means the rupees, dollars, these measurements you can call as monetary measurements. Monetary measurements means how you measure the currency. Currency measurements we are calling as monetary measurements. But marks is not related to currency related measurements. This is a non-monetary measurement. Okay, this we call as, so marks, kilograms, okay, meters, or the memory measurements, GB. These all are not monetary related measurements, non-monetary measurements. So this information, if you are going to maintain in the system, this simply you call as statistical information. Okay, these all are statistical measurements. Okay, so rupees, dollars, these all are monetary measurements, and this marks, kilograms, liters, square feet all are non-monetary measurements. All non-monetary measurements you can call as simply statistical information. So when we are going to maintain this sort of information in the system, we address this information as a stat currency. In reality, this is not currency. The statistical information, in the statistical, the first 4 letters, the prefix you can take as a stat. So this currency we call as stat currency. Other than monetary measurements, what are the non-monetary measurements related information you are going to enter in the system, that information we call as stat currency. Okay, so we have one concept where this stat currency is required. Reality, this is not currency, but as per system we treat it as a stat currency. Within the general ledger application, we have one concept. So where we have to use this currency, why we have to use, how that could be useful in the system process or business point of view, we'll understand when we work on the general ledger application on the specific topic. For now, just notice, so one of the currency type is stat currency. Reality, that is not currency, that is statistical information. System point of view we call as currency, but which currency is stat currency. So now the final point what we have to take here is, we have a 3 type of currencies as per system. We have 3 type of currencies as per system. Okay, those are here. You can take anything. Marks, square feet, okay, or kilograms. You take any measurements. These all we call as statistical measurements. This we call as stat currency. So whatever we are discussing, these are type of currencies. Functional currency, foreign currency, stat currency. Functional currency is nothing but wherever you are operating your business within that country, whatever the local currency we use, that is a functional currency. So other than functional currency, all currencies we have to treat as a foreign currencies. If you are entering something in the system which is not related to money measurements, that value we have to treat as stat currency. Stat is nothing but statistical information. It could be functional currency or foreign currency that falls under monetary measurements, and stat currency is non-monetary measurement. Means it's not related to currency measurement, but still we have to maintain in the system as a currency. Which currency is statistical currency. So this point we have to understand when we talk about currencies. Okay. So
Hi Lakshman, this is Hemant. Have a question.
please.
So I'm from PeopleSoft background, and financials is my core. So what we do is we have a process. So what we do is when you are, let's say, have two business entities, that is USA and Germany and India, like that. So what we do is we run a process using revaluation. So prior posting to global ledger. So what we do is we run the revaluation process so that it will be exactly whatever the current rate it is in the foreign currency. It will be posted as the same. Then we will do the entry in the global ledger. That is the the Germany or whatever the location we have.
Hemant,
so in this,
I can understand what you are saying. You are saying consolidation. Yep. That is a concept, separate concept. What
yep.
question?
So the question is, here in Oracle Fusion, do you have process or process driven or through configuration?
Process driven. Process driven. First, you have to configure whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Whatever you want to execute, you have to set system accordingly. Then you can process whatever you want to execute.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Whatever you are referring in the PeopleSoft, it's all about perform the revaluation, perform the translation if required, finally consolidating the data in the global ledger or something else, right? The same activities we do in the Fusion also. We'll see all those are concepts. Since you are referring that, just that is the point we have to take. Fine. So any questions here, please? Okay. So when you talk about currency, 2 points here you have to consider. The first point is we no need to create any currencies in the system. All the currencies Oracle is providing, whatever Oracle is providing, which we no need to create in the system, that we call as seeded data. The currency also we have to consider as a seeded data. That is the first point. Second point is type of currencies. We have functional, foreign, and stat. Functional means local currency. Foreign means other than local, all currencies are foreign. So if any value are entering in the system which is not related to monetary measurement, that we call as statistical information. For that we have a name as a stat currency. Reality that is not currency, but as per product application, Oracle is giving the name as stat currency. So these are the 3 type of currencies we can have in the system. So any questions on these points, please? Okay. Say you are running the business in India. You are dealing with a US client, okay, US supplier or US customer. So when you are recording the transaction, there should be conversion. If you enter transaction in the dollars, that need to be converted to rupees. For all these, we use the rates. That points we'll discuss when you are working on the application. Now it is not required. So we have to understand how many types of currencies we have, whether we have to create or based on the transactions which we record, what additional setups we have to do in the system. Anyway, those we will cover. For now, the point is what key points we have to understand when we talk about currencies. The first point is you no need to create because Oracle is providing all currencies. And when we talk about types, these are the 3 types of currencies we can have. Any questions on this point, please? Okay, no questions. Now the next point is description. We discussed if you are going to record the transaction, date you have to capture. To capture the date, we have to create an accounting calendar. To address the amount with the currency, so these are the points we have to understand. We no need to create. Oracle is providing whatever the currency we require, we can use for the amount whatever we are entering in the system. And these are the types we discussed. And the third point is activity. Which activity you are doing, or the details of the transaction or description of the transaction. Now if you are going to record the transaction in the system, okay, if you are going to record the transaction in the system, if it is related to company, you have to write more detail level. You may have a multiple companies, you may have a multiple departments. Okay, so when you are recording the transaction for any organization, that should be more detailed. Say as an individual, as a person, you purchase something. If you are making note of the what purchases you are doing as your personal information, okay, you can simply make a note somewhere, I purchased a laptop. That's all. As an individual, you don't need to write too much of details. This I purchased in which currency. This I purchased for which company, which department. These are not applicable. So individual can write the description simply. Laptop I purchased or stationery I purchased. That's enough. But company point of view, everything need to be reported. Everything should be more detailed, and everything, okay, should be in the position to analyze and to take the, that should help for organization for decision making and identifying how much expense they spend, from which process, which company, which department. There are many points which need to be considered in case of companies. So that to support all these aspects of information, every transaction need to be captured more detailed level. Okay, so here, before you go and create the transaction, you have to maintain the data ready in the system. So when you create the transaction, we require date. So whenever you create the transaction, we don't create the date in the system. So before we go and create the transaction, we'll keep accounting calendar ready so that all the dates, all the periods, all the years would be ready. When you are recording the transaction, simply you can pick the date or pick the period or pick the year. That's how you can create. That means before you go and create the transaction, you are keeping this information ready. You are predefining. Okay, you are predefining, you are keeping ready so that you can use. In the same way, if you are going to record the transaction, if you want to capture the details of the transaction, you have to keep the information ready in the system. How many companies you have, how many departments you have, what are the different activities you perform in your company, in which locations you are operating the business. Okay, the complete information you have to keep ready in the system. If you keep everything ready in the system, when you are recording the transaction, you no need to create the company again. If you create all the companies one time, so whenever you record the transaction belongs to which company, simply you can select the company. Since you are predefining, you are creating and keeping ready, it would be easy when you are recording the transaction. That's the reason what we have to do is, when we are going to create the transactions, before that you have to keep information ready. So first you have to maintain all your companies. So how many companies we have. as per your business. That means when you are doing the implementation for any client, how many companies the client has, all we have to list out. How many departments they have. Okay. So what are the activities they do? It could be sales, purchases, etc. What activities they do, that you can take as accounts. Account. And again, you may take what are the different locations they are operating the business. Maybe locations. Fine. Say they are into different services. So maybe they have to capture in each and every transaction what are the transactions they are doing that is belongs to which service type. So this is how, like, what are the information they want to capture in the each and every transaction that they have to keep ready, or else let it be service type and location. We'll discuss later. We have to understand many points related to that. Okay. Say for example, the basic information I'm taking, we'll discuss more detail level. But the first point is they want to, when they record the transaction, they want to include the transaction belongs to which company, which department, and which activity they are doing. So they have to maintain all the details here. How many companies they have. So for example, so if you take example of companies, they have, you take example of let's take Google as a company. So enterprise is Google. Let's take one of the business is Google search. Other company is Google Ads. The other entity is Google Cloud. Okay, these may be the companies. And what are the departments they have? So they have finance department, HR department, sales department, marketing department. Okay. So R&D department. This is all. The other departments. And accounts. What are the different accounts they have? What are the activities they are doing? For each activity, they have to maintain the separate accounts. Here, when I talk about accounts, say they can have account called as salaries account. If they have a 10 bank accounts, 10 cash accounts, they can have cash accounts, cash account. Say admin expense accounts. Say laptop purchase. So this is a n number of accounts. When you look at the company, every company based on the size of the company, small or medium, large, they'll maintain the accounts. What are the different business activities they are doing? Based on that, you can find the accounts. So generally, you can find these accounts in hundreds, thousands, in lakhs also. Okay, if you look at the big organization, you can easily find the accounts in thousands and lakhs also. So that's how, what are the accounts the company is holding to perform the transactions, or simply say what are the activities the company is doing. Each activity we create in the system as a separate account. That activities they can track, they can report with the account only. This is how you have to maintain in the system. So then when they're recording the transaction, what they can do is they can select the transaction belongs to which company, which department, which account. Simply along with the company name, they can give the code. The company code is 1. Okay, 1 means Google search, 2 means Google Ads, 3 means Google Cloud. The same way for departments also, they can provide the numbering. As per system, this you can call as codes, or simply you can call as codes. So this is how they have to maintain the data first. If anybody is going to use these applications, so how many companies they have, how many departments they have, how many accounts they have, along with that, what else they want to capture as a part of transaction, those details they have to maintain in the system as a ready-made data. Here also I'll say 1, 2. So for our understanding and discussion, I am taking the few accounts only. Reality, the accounts every company maintains in hundreds and thousands and lakhs if required, based on the operations what they are doing. Okay, say some travel expense, okay, or accommodation expense. This is how, okay, so travel expense. N number of accounts. Now, if any transaction, simply they can take the date. Okay, they can capture the date from the calendar. Okay, they can capture the date from calendar. Say today they spent some admin expenses. They can take the date as from calendar. Okay, 27th June 2020. And what activity they did? Say they spent admin expense. Which department spent? Say finance department. Which company did? Google Ads. So in that case, they no need to write the description detail level. Simply they'll give Google Ads means 2 down. Which department? Finance department. Finance department means 1 down. What they did? They spent some expense, admin expense. That is 3. That's it. This is how they'll write. 2.1.3. 2 means Google Ads. 1 means finance department. 3 means admin expense. How much they spent? 1000. 1000 is what? USD. That's all. This is how we have to record the transaction in the system. If you want to record the transaction like this, the calendar is required so that you can capture the date. The activity related details or description is required in the system so that you can select the transaction belongs to which company, which department, which account. And you have to maintain our currencies so that whatever the amount you are entering, you can relate with the currency. So this is how you can create the transaction based on the information you are maintaining in the system. So here we given the titles. These all are the companies. These are the title we given as a company. This information is related to department, so we given the title as a department. This information is related to accounts, so we given the title as account. So what are the titles? These titles, if you are going to create in the system, okay, if you are going to create in the system, these titles, as it is, we have to create in the system with the concept called a segment. Okay, so we have to create company as one segment, department as one segment, account as a segment. Why we are calling a segment? The total data related to one enterprise only, one organization only, we are segmenting, we are separating with those titles. Okay, if you don't have these titles, there is no segregation for this data. That is just data. There is no clue what is that. So in the application point of view, if you are going to create these titles as per system, we call as segments. So in the system, whatever the data we provide, simply as in the system language, we call as values. So the titles, if you are calling as a segments, under segments, whatever the data we are providing, that information we call as segment values. Okay, segment values. Okay, this is system terminology. Here, simple point what we are trying to discuss. These are the companies, title is company. These are the departments, title is department. The same information, if you are going to create in the system, the titles you have to call as segment, and the titles, whatever the information we have, the relevant information that we call as segment values. As per system, Company we call as company segment. How many companies we have, we call as company segment values. Department we call as department segment, and the department, what are the departments we have, you call as department segment values. Account segment values. So this is the terminology we use within the application. And now this complete information belongs to which organization? Say this complete information belongs to Google Corporation, for example. Okay, Google Corporation. That means for this complete information belongs to what we are giving the title. For this data, title is company. For this data, title is departments. For this entire data, these all companies, departments, accounts are belongs to which organization? Google Corporation. So this title, if you are going to give in the system, that we call as, okay. So I'm just introducing the system terminology. Okay, system terminology that we call as chart of accounts structure name. Okay, chart of accounts structure name. So here, whatever the information we have, out of complete this information, accounts is primary information. Okay, so here chart of accounts. This is a chart. It is something like it represents the information primarily related to accounts. Here they give a name as chart of accounts. This information is not only related to account. This is information related to departments and company also. It won't be good if Oracle is calling it as a chart of companies, chart of departments, chart of accounts separately. That is the reason you may have information related to companies, departments, accounts, and something else, but name they given as a chart of accounts. Chart of accounts means this complete information where you are maintaining for the title what we are going to give in the system, that we call a chart of accounts structure. So it follows structure. Here title, under the title again 3 subtitles, under each title we have a data. It is something like some structured manner. Okay, the data will be arranged in the system by following the structure. Top Google Corporation, under that company, under company values. This is how we are going to maintain. So since it is a spreadsheet, I am easily writing. If you want to create the same in the system, you have to follow some structured representation. That is the reason they are calling as chart of accounts. So if you are going to create the same in the system, okay, giving the titles, maintaining the values, okay, these are all the titles again under Google Corporation. This is how if you want to create with this some sort of hierarchy. So we have one feature within the application which we call as accounting flex field. Okay, accounting flex field, or you can call it as accounting key flex field. Okay, so accounting flex field or accounting key flex field. What does it mean by flex field? See, by looking at the term you can understand. Field means field. What type of field? That is flexible field. That means within the system, if you are going to maintain the data with this sort of hierarchy, top Google Corporation, under that we have to maintain the 3 segments. Under segments we want to maintain the segment values. Okay, this sort of flexibility can be created, can be provided in the system with the specific fields. Those fields we are calling as flex fields. Okay, the application, we have a very flexible fields to maintain the data by following this hierarchy. Again, this total data is related to accounting. So based on this information only, you can capture the description. With the help of description only, you can create the accounting in the system. So tomorrow, if you are going to generate the reports for this, all the companies, accordingly how to perform the accounting in the system. That means this information is related to required for accounting point of view. So that is the reason. So which information is required for accounting purpose, and that information can be maintained within the system by using the feature called as flex field. That is the reason they are calling as accounting flex field. The other name is accounting key flex field. The accounting information we can maintain in the system with the help of flex field concept. Again, this information is key information for the company. It's a very important, mandatory. That is the reason you can call as key information. Key means mandatory, compulsory information. So which information is very much important when you are recording the transaction? The same information we use for accounting purpose also and reporting purpose also. To maintain that sort of information in the system, whatever the future Oracle is providing, that we are calling as accounting flex field or accounting key flex field. So this accounting key flex field is available in the general ledger application. Okay, general ledger means GL, already we discussed. Okay, so this is one of the application. Within the general ledger application, we have accounting flex field or accounting key flex field. By using the accounting flex field, you can create the chart of account structure name like this, client name. Under that you can maintain the segments. Under segments you can maintain the segment values. So this is what we have to understand. So that means simply what you can say, giving the structure name and segment values. Okay, so this all, if you are creating in the system, okay, this simply you call as chart of accounts. COA. So to maintain all your company's departments accounts related to some enterprise or organization, what we have to do in the system, we have to create the chart of accounts, COA. Chart of, how do you create the chart of account? First we have to give the chart of account structure name. It's nothing but enterprise name. So when you are recording the transaction, which details you want to capture into each and every transaction, which is required for your reporting purpose, that you can create as a segments. The relevant values you can create as a segment values. Okay, this is how you can create the chart of accounts. Where you can create the chart of accounts? By using the accounting flex field. By using accounting flex field, you can create the chart of accounts, and with the help of chart of accounts, you can capture the details of the transaction in the system environment. And in which application you can create the accounting flex field? By using the general ledger application. Within the general ledger application, we have one feature called as accounting flex field. By using accounting flex field, you can create the chart of accounts. How you can create the chart of account? First we have to provide the chart of account structure name, then we have to create the segments. Within the segment we have to create the segment values. So this is what you have to understand. Okay, so if you want to capture the date, we need calendar. If you enter the amount, to identify the amount, we need currency in the system, and what activity you are doing. To capture that information more detail level, we need chart of accounts in the system. With the help of chart of accounts, you can maintain the details. By using the same details, you can provide the description of the transaction, so that's how you can track the transaction. Accordingly, you can go with the reporting also. This is a point we have to understand. So still there are many points which we have to discuss about chart of accounts. So we'll proceed with those. And before we proceed, what are the few points we discussed about chart of accounts? Any questions from anyone, please? It's a very, very important one. So you have to understand thoroughly. Any questions here, please? But point is very simple. What details you want to capture when you record the transaction, those details you have to maintain as a part of chart of accounts with the help of segments. That's it. Okay, how many you have to create, why you have to create, again we'll discuss those points. We'll see those. Before we proceed with those points, any questions from anyone from the current discussion? Any questions, please? No questions? Fine. So when you do the implementation for any client, okay, when you do the implementation for any client, how many segments we have to create? Okay, how many segments we have to create? How many system will allow? How many are mandatory? reality how many we create. These are all points we have to understand, and why we have to create those many segments. So there are many points which you have to understand. Now we'll proceed with those. When you create the chart of accounts, okay, when you create the chart of accounts for any client, so based on your chart of accounts, what you create, your implementation final status will depend. That means the implementation is going to be successful or failed. Everything will be decided on the chart of accounts only. Okay, chart of accounts only. So when you create the chart of accounts, how many segments we have to create? As per system will allow us to create max 30 segments. Okay, max 30 segments we can create. Okay, by using the chart of accounts, max you can create 30 segments. Here we take in the simple example, company, department and account. Okay, company, department, account, we take in the 3 segments. But as per system, how many we can create? Max 30 we can create. To create the chart of account in the system, minimum how many segments we have to create? Okay, how many minimum segments we have to create so that we can use the chart of accounts to record the transaction? Minimum 2 segments. Okay, if you want to create the chart of accounts, minimum we require 2. With 1 segment you cannot create. Minimum 2 we have to create. What are those 2 also we'll discuss. Max we can create 30 segments. And the reality when you do the implementation, okay, reality. Okay, reality, how many segments we create? When you do the implementations for clients, the reality how many segments we create. You can see in the real implementations, maybe 6 segments or 7 segments or 8 segments or 9 and maybe 10. If somebody is going to use more than 10, that is not a great practice. So always we should try to minimize the number of segments what we are going to use in the chart of accounts. Oracle strongly recommends try to minimize the number of segments. Of course, we got a flexibility of creating up to 30 segments. Okay, we got a flexibility of creating up to 30 segments, but minimum 2 are required. The reality we see 6 or 7 or 8, 9, 10. For one client you may implement 7. For other client you may implement 6 only. For other client you may implement 9. Okay. We never create a 30 segments or 25 segments or 20 segments, 50 segments. In some implementation within the chart of accounts, more than 10 segments are created means there should be very strong reason. Otherwise, that is not a great practice at all. Okay. On an average, 7 or 8 segments we implement for most of the clients. Always we should try to minimize the number of segments. If you use more segments, the first point is there won't be any requirement of need of using many segments, because our system has the capability of tracking each and every application level. So there won't be any general need of capturing or too many details in each and every transaction with the help of chart of accounts. So first point is ideally you no need to take many segments. There is reason a system has a capability, what is the capability and how we'll discuss. Another point is we have to minimize the number of segments. If you don't minimize the number of segments, say you are going to use 20 segments in your chart of accounts, your system performance will be very bad. Okay, the more segments you use, the performance you will have a very poor. So that is the reason Oracle strongly recommends try to use less number of segments. Your system performance will be really rich. That's what Oracle is recommending. Anyway, reality we create 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10 segments. Okay. Don't recommend any client to use more than 10. Anyway, these all points need to be discussed with the client. Once everything is discussed, you will come to know what segments they need and what base they need, everything you'll understand. Now anyway, we'll discuss what points you have to understand before you go and discuss with your client. Okay. So minimum max 30 segments and minimum 2 segments. Ideally, which segments we have to use in implementations as a minimum 2 segments. The minimum 2 segments means 2 segments are mandatory, compulsory in every chart of accounts. Okay, guess which segments could be mandatory. We take an example here. Which segments you may think those 2 are mandatory, compulsory?
Company and account.
Yes. You may ignore the department. Generally, you take the department. If you go with the priority, the transaction belongs to which company and what activity we did. That's very important. It is secondary point tracking for this transaction, this activity happened for which department. That is secondary point. The very first point is, okay, we spend something, which company spent. The next point is which department is involved. The expenses in that company, which department the expenses belongs to, that is secondary point. So company and accounts are very primary. Whatever the transaction you are going to record, you should relate the transaction that is belongs to which company. The company is doing which activity. They are paying salaries, they are spending expense, or they are purchasing, they are selling something else. You have to track in the system. So the minimum 2 segments are company and account. Going forward, you will understand. There is some slight naming convention will be changed. For now, you take as a company and account only. Reality, yes. 2 segments are mandatory. Ideally, those are company and account. The reality, we use these many segments. So what we have to take as a segment into chart of accounts? It's very simple. On what base you want to take segments into chart of accounts? So you have to take based on the reporting requirements. Okay, based on the reporting. If you want to generate the reports, first you have to capture the data. If you want to capture the data, you have to take that element into chart of accounts as a segment. Which data you want to capture in each and every transaction that you have to take as a segment. So with the help of that segment, you can capture the details so that the data would be available. The same you can use for reporting. On what base we create the chart of accounts means, always remember to meet the reporting requirements of the company. How company can meet the reporting requirements? If data can be generated accordingly. The transactions can be generated accordingly based on the data availability. They can easily prepare the reports. If data is not available accordingly, they cannot prepare the reports. So that is the reason. Simple point is we have to design the chart of accounts to meet the client reporting requirements. That's a very important point. Okay, that could be internal reporting or external reporting. That may be internally they may prepare the reports, or else they may prepare the reports to their stakeholders or legal bodies, whatever it may be. Okay, to satisfy the internal and external reporting requirements, we have to design the chart of accounts. So that is the first point which you have to understand. When you are recording the transaction in the system, we have to capture certain details. Those details you can capture with the help of chart of account. The chart of account need to be designed to meet the company reporting requirements. So how many segments we can have within the chart of accounts? 30 segments. How many? Minimum 2. 2 are mandatory. Those are company and account. So reality, how many segments we create in the chart of accounts? 6 or 7 or 8, 9 or 10. This is how you have to create. Okay, let's take any one of the example how reality we create the chart of accounts. Say we are implementing for one client. And again, what we have to take as a segments. Say we have a different applications. We have AP. Hope you know all these short names. Already we discussed as a part of P2P and O2C cycles. We have AP, we have AR. AP means accounts payable application, AR account receivables application, FA fixed assets application, PO purchasing application, OM order management application, okay, GL general ledger application, INV inventory application, CM or CE, cash management or cash entry system. This is how we have a number of applications. Now, when we are going to create the chart of accounts, what are the key points we have to consider? Okay, what are the key points we have to consider? That is very important. So what are the chart of accounts you are creating? That chart of account, within the chart of account, what are the segment you are taking? That segment should not be specific to particular application. Say for example, I am going to create the chart of accounts. Okay, I'll create one chart of accounts, COA. Okay, chart of accounts. COA means chart of accounts. So I'm creating one chart of account. Within that, I'm going to take the segments. One segment is company. Other segment is department. Third segment is account. Okay. The client wants to capture the transaction belongs to which company, which department, which account. In the same company, they have a different type of businesses. So when they have a different type of businesses, if they want to track the type of businesses, simply they can have a segment called as LOB. LOB means line of business. Okay, line of businesses. And again, they are dealing with some services. Okay, the service type they can have as a segment. And say they are dealing with a different products. They can take segment as a product. They are dealing with the suppliers. They can take supplier as a segments. They are dealing with customers. They can they can take segment as a customers. Okay, they are dealing with assets. They can take segment as asset. They can take, I am saying they can take. They can take, system will allow. Okay, say this is a chart of accounts segments for one client. And one more important point, system will allow 30 segments. System would allow 30 segments, but minimum 2 are required. But how many we are going to create up to as per client reporting requirements? As a consultant, always we have to suggest them to use less number of segments. As a real practice, it could be 6 or 7 or 8, 9 or 10. Okay, not more than that. Okay, somewhere you may see some client might be using 11. We cannot do anything in that case. Let them use. There could be some critical business requirement which demands to use 11 segments, but that won't become a great practice. Since that is a situation, they may use it. Reality 7, 8, that's what you can see for most of the clients. So I'm going to finalize these segments after discussing with the client. Okay, so how many segments I just finalized here? 9 segments. Okay, client started using the Oracle Fusion applications. After 1 year, they need one more segment. The one more segment is, say they are running their business, along with that they do some projects. Take example L&T. Okay, if you take company as L&T is doing some metro projects and other projects. So whatever they are spending, whatever the revenue they are generating, if they want to tag with the project, definitely they have to have one more segment called as project. Say 9 segment we finalized, company started using, they started working with the projects. They are doing some projects for their clients. Okay, in that case, the transaction what they are recording, they want to capture the transactions belongs to each project. That means they got new segment requirement. We finalized 9 and they started using. After 1 year, they may need one more segment called as project. If they need one more segment as a project, system will allow us to create, but we should not create. Oracle strongly recommend don't add any additional segments once the chart of account is being used. Okay, before you start using the system, you can increase the number of segments. Once the chart of account is in usage, you should not add any segments even system is allowing. If you add additional segments in between, it will create data inconsistency issues. Still client wants one more segment that has to be done as a separate project, which we call as redesigning the chart of accounts. As a simple, you cannot go and add it. System will allow, but you should not do it. It will impact the existing data. It will disturb everything. That is the reason we should not add any additional segments once you start using the chart of accounts. That is the reason always what we do is, in future, client may require additional segments. That is the reason always we suggest the client to have a buffer segments, nothing but future segments. So we'll suggest to client to have 1 or 2 future segments. Future 1, future 2. This is how we'll suggest to the client. After 2 years, they need one more segment called as project. Simply they can change the name. They are not adding the new segment. The name, whatever they given for future purpose, they reserved the segment. That they can make it as a project. Done. Okay, later they want to capture location of the transaction where they're recording. Yes, this also they convert into location. They need one more segment, no scope. No future segments also available to use with a real segment, whatever they require. So this is how we have to suggest to the client to always have it to future segments. Now, if you look at this chart of accounts, here almost we have 11 segments. Reality, whatever we included here, those all are required or not, we have to understand. The very fundamental point is, when you are creating the chart of accounts for any client, you have to understand the segments what you are using within the chart of account, that should not be related to specific application. The application specific data capturing element you should not take as a chart of accounts. If we take example of supplier, okay, the supplier is specific to AP only. If we take customer, customer is specific to AR only. If you take asset, asset is specific to FA. So whatever you selected into chart of accounts as a segments which are specific to application, okay, those really not required. That means the point is application specific, one specific application specific element you should not take into chart of accounts. Whatever you are taking in the chart of accounts, that should help us to capture the data across the application. If you take example company, you may record the transaction APR, AR or FA, PO, OM, GL, inventory or cash management. Company is required everywhere. Wherever you record the transaction, yes, department is required. Wherever you record the transaction in any application, yes, account is required. In any application you record the transaction, the line of business. What are the different type of businesses you have? The transaction belongs to which type of business in so and so company that we require. If you are dealing with the services, the expense what you are spending in the payables may be related to which service type. And what are the revenue you are generating in the receivables, you have to address what is the service type. And when you are going to purchase something from the supplier, whatever you are spending, whatever the transaction you are creating, you may have to include this. So this is how, like, what are the segments we are taking in the chart of accounts that should be useful in the most of the application. Then only you have to take it as a segment. If that element belongs to specific application, you should not take it as a segment into chart of accounts. That's a very, very important point. Okay, that means you should not take supplier. Supplier only is required in the AP. Along with AP, maybe in the PO application also. So the supplier element is specific to application. You should not take into chart of accounts. Customer also specific to receivables and order management application. You should not take. Product, you don't need to take. Products and all you can maintain within the inventory. Okay, you don't need to take here. Until unless there is strong reason why to take, otherwise you should not take. Assets you maintain within the fixed assets. Okay.
So Lakshman,
Please.
so under do you have any examples under which scenarios product will be a part of segment? Like, can you give 1 or 2 examples?
See, ideally,
Because I have seen some of the companies.
One second. See, whatever the stock you are maintaining within the inventory, ideally, we have a mechanism in the system to identify that automatically system. When you record the transaction, you will be able to track the product. You can generate the reports. Okay. So, along with the, apart from that, if you have some business requirement, some complex business scenarios where you want to say, for example, you are maintaining some products in the warehouse but you have a different product lines. Okay, so what are the transactions you are recording? The transaction falls under which product line? Okay, maybe company is into manufacturing or some other outsourcing process, whatever it may be. In those scenarios, you may just select segment as a product or product line, so that the transaction what you are recording, the expense what you are spending, that is related to which product line related expense. The revenue what you are generating, that is related to which product line. This is apart from the product. Okay, the product and all items, simply you can call as items that you can maintain within the inventory. So what you are purchasing, what you are selling, that you can include. Say maybe there may be 20 items which falls under product line 1, other 50 items product line 2. Okay, so if you have a requirement of generating the reports product line level also, apart from detailed product level, you can have a product line as a one of the segments. But if you want to include just product as a part of chart of accounts, ideally not required. System has a capability in which a transaction, when you are recording the transaction, so what you are purchasing, what you are selling, anyway you have to select the product. The product is not required in the chart of accounts. As per that application record itself, you select. In that case, you can produce the reporting as per that within the respective application. So when you say product, the product you may not use in all the applications. That is the reason you no need to take, but still the client wants to take, I want to have a product. We have to tell them this is what possible, this is not possible. So system has the capability of tracking the transaction within the transaction, which product we are selecting, but still they want to have product as a chart of accounts. Yes, they can have. Even if you have a chart of a product as a part of chart of account, there is no great advantage. Already inbuilt functionality we have in the application. Even if they take product as a, there's nothing. Say for example, this another example you can take where they can take as a some product. If you take example of Oracle, if Oracle implemented Oracle Fusion application for them, in that case they can select product as a one of the segment. In that case, which product they are selling to the client. Okay, or they can give the product family or else. So financials, SCM, HCM, or else they can track, they can have two segments also. For example, product and product family. They select product family as finance, which application they are selling, payables application. This is how they, if they want to capture, they can do. But reality, this and all they can track in the respective application. When you talk about chart of accounts, which segments required in the most of the application to capture the data, those only we have to take as a chart of accounts. If any information is specific to one or two applications, that we should not take into chart of accounts. That won't become a great practice. But we don't need to take into chart of accounts. By default, inbuilt functionality we have in the system. So when we deal with any product related transaction, we can produce the reports. Still, if client wants to have, you can have it. Okay. So we have a cases where clients choose customer also one of the segment. Okay. So that's how just we have a cases, but ideally not required. When system has the capability of tracking those without having segment, we can go with that. Still, if some clients wants to have something else in the chart of accounts, we have to accept, because that is final decision is done by those only. We work as a consultants to help them how product works. Okay, what is the best practice, and giving suggestions. For that we will be in the projects and to implement accordingly. But final decision will be taken by client only. We have to accept what they are taking, but we have to recommend the best practices. Okay, that's what. If client is asking, I need 20 segments. Okay, which segment I require, I'll use. We have to suggest that 20 segment will become bad practice. Always just try to minimize. We have to minimize, otherwise your performance will be poor. If you want to create 20 chart of accounts with the 20 segments, yes, I'll create. Later you will be getting into the troubles, issues with the system. So that is the reason, don't go with that. Which is the key information when you record the transaction, which is the very, very important information which is required for our reporting, that you can include. If you need supplier, that anyway you can create the reports in the payables application with the supplier. Okay. If you need customers into reports, yes, receivables you can create the reports with the customer wise. The item wise you can create the reports in the inventory wise. This is how just inventory application. This is how we have to talk to the client, and we have to make them to understand the reality, how that should be, how it should not be. So these are the points we have to consider when you design the chart of accounts. Any questions here, please? So when something is possible without having as a segment, there is no meaning if they want to add that as a segment. That would become unnecessary information. That's all. There is no additional benefit. So what we have to take as a part of chart of accounts as a segments, which information they want to capture across the most of the application, that information they have to take as a chart of accounts. If any information is specific to application, that particular application related specific data to capture, that you should not take as a segment into chart of accounts. So this is what you have to understand. Any questions, please?
Yeah, question on the future segment.
Go ahead, please. Direct question.
So, okay. So, if for the future segment you have already predefined the length of say 8 or 10, whatever that is. So in future when you want to use that, if you need to, can you change the length of that future segment? Or we cannot change that one?
The point is length and all, we didn't discuss anything. That we'll see in the system, since you are referring your experience. Okay. So let this question be in between you and me. So length, okay, length you can increase, but you cannot decrease in future.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
I have one question here.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. Say suppose initially, like say you've chosen like say 7 segments, right? So initially when the implementation happened, they chose service type as one of the segments, but in future like their business changed and service type is no longer being used. So like how do they deal in those situations? Like,
yeah, in the situations when already you have service type as a segment, in future they don't want to use it. So in that case, what you can do is you can set some default value, put some zeros. Whenever a business user is going to record the transaction, so automatically you can make the system to take 00 since the service type is not applicable for transactions. Okay. You should not you should not do these practices again. Okay, because already data is existed in the system with the service type with the past transactions, right? So that is it. You should not disturb which is already existed, and you should not add which is not there in the chart of accounts.
Okay.
So it has to be as it is, but don't enter the value since that is not applicable. Put some 0000 or 0 as a default value. So whenever user is recording the transaction, they'll select company, department, account, LOB. Okay. They ignore, they leave service type with some dummy values. Even future also, you don't know which segment is going to be in the future, right? But if you don't enter any value for future 1 and future 2, system won't allow. That is the reason enter some dummy value.
Okay.
That's it. That's how we manage.
Okay.
Any other questions, please?
Can you please shed some light on the example of product line and product, like why product is not a good practice to be included as, but product line is a good? Just 1 minute will be enough.
See, product line is different from product. Product means you are dealing with which item, which product, what product you are purchasing, what product you are selling. Okay. So in the organization, okay, in the organization, you are dealing with some, you are into manufacturing industry. Okay. So you are using Oracle Fusion Finance, Oracle applications. So as per your business, you have 6 product lines. 6 product line. From each product line, you may produce 100 or 1000 different products. You have a reporting requirement, whatever you are spending for each product line, how much you are spending from each product line level, how much revenue you are generating, you have a business reporting requirements. In that case, product line you can take as a segment. Okay, so you are spending something. When you are spending something, what you are spending, that is expenses belongs to product line 1 or line 2, line 3, line 4 or 6, you have to specify. You did some sales you did some activities, you sold something and you are getting revenue. The revenue what you are getting, that falls under specific product, that would be related to so and so product you are selling. That product is falling under which product line you want to capture. In that case, you can take product line. So product line is nothing but the summary of the products which you are dealing, maybe spending or revenue generation. Yeah, grouping.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's how you
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also have one more question in the earlier discussion.
Please.
Where
See, 1 second. Any question, anytime, direct question, please.
So stat currency. So
Yeah.
stat is really not a currency.
That's what we discussed. It's not a currency. When we use that in the system, we call as currency. That's all. Yes, that is the reality, not currency. They should not give the name as currency, but just they named as a currency, we are calling it as currency. That is not currency. Correct.
Can you give like one practical example, like one small example, like we can
have
understand
to discuss we have to discuss a lot to understand, because that is separate concept. For now, remember type of currencies are these. We have a separate concept. When we discuss with that concept, we will take examples and the reality how that works also, everything I'll take, and we'll see in the system also how that can be managed.
Okay. All right.
Let me take simple example. Okay. I have a finance department, HR department, and sales departments. I taken on billing for rent. I'm paying $50,000 for that billing, and within that billing, finance department is occupied 1,000 square feet. HR department is occupied 500 square feet. Sales department is occupied 300 square feet. Now we are paying $50,000. Now I want to know how much rent we are paying for finance department. Now you should go with the calculation, right? Okay. Total how many square feet? 1800 square feet. We are paying 15,000 for 1800 square feet. If you want to know for finance department, if 50,000 is equal to, or 18,000 is equal to, 18,000 square feet are equal to $50,000, then how much for 1,000 square feet? You have to go with the calculation, A into B by C. A is how much you are paying, B is nothing but specific department square feet, C is nothing but total square feet. Then you will get how much for finance department. So if you want to do this sort of calculations in the system, you have to enter finance department occupied in how many square feet, HR department is occupied in how many square feet, sales department is occupied in how many square feet. You have to enter in the system. Then only you can do these calculations. Otherwise, system doesn't support. So these are the cases where we have to enter statistical information in the system that we are calling a stat currency. Clear?
Okay. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see anyway, because since we are going to deal with these concepts, we are not discussing in this stage, since there is a separate concept at all. Yep. Then, any other questions, please? Okay. Here, reality, what we take as a company, we will discuss. Okay. Reality, what we have to take as a company, those points we'll discuss. So for now, just company means I'll take as a company. Okay. Company, what exactly? When you go with reality, what we take as a company. If they have one company, how they'll take multiple companies. There are a few points which we have to understand. Okay. So any questions here, please?
Lakshman.
Please.
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether it's the right time to ask this question, but you're probably going to come to that alias
No, you can
kind
do
of
one thing.
concept.
You can do one thing. What we are discussing, if the point is related to that, you can ask me. If it is not related to this,
Okay.
ignore it. I'll take care of. Okay.
Okay.
If it's not going to discuss in the classes, definitely later you can raise that point.
Okay.
Or
So
else,
but there is a concept
you can ask me.
in okay, there is a concept in Fusion similar, right? Similar kind of concept.
Which concept similar in Fusion?
Alias,
Huh?
alias concept.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
you are entering.
Yes. That is one concept. Yeah. See, any questions you can
Okay.
ask me. If that is not related to current discussions, better we can discuss in the end of the session. Yeah. No issues.
Okay.
Nothing wrong if you ask if you're asking now. Okay, but better if any relevant questions, those will discuss in the end of the session. If you have a one or multiple questions related to current discussions, yes, we can discuss immediately. If any other questions, we can discuss in the end of the session. Yeah, you are checking whether so and so future is available in the Fusion, which is available in the EBS, right? Yes, that we have in Fusion also. Yeah. Short and aliases.
Yes.
Yeah, we have. Done. Any other questions? Right. Okay. So these are the points we have to notice. Okay. So max we can create 30, minimum or 2 segments. Without 2 segments, you cannot create the chart of accounts. And the purpose of chart of account is to track the information so that accordingly you can perform the reporting. Based on the reporting requirements, we create the chart of accounts. And we should try to reduce the number of segments, and we should not take the elements into chart of accounts as segments which are specific to particular application. And we should suggest to the client future segments so that in the any business expansion or growth in the business, so those segments can be used. Otherwise, we should not add any additional segments into chart of accounts. Even system will allow, it will create many data inconsistency issues, so that data which are already created, everything will get disturbed. And these are the key points. Okay, these are the key points we have to understand. Okay, let's talk about few more points. Okay, so what are the best practices we have to follow when we design the chart of accounts for any company? Okay, say best practices for chart of accounts design. Hence the finalization, what chart of accounts segments they have to use in the chart of accounts, simply that we call as designing the chart of accounts. Okay, designing the chart of accounts. Fine. So when you talk about designing the chart of account as what best practices we have to follow. So you may have a 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. Okay, that completely depending on your client business requirement. But which is a primary element they want to consider for reporting? Okay, so what level they want to find out the profitability and all? What level, what segment level they want to balance each and every transaction? When they create the transactions, say for example, one company got 10 branches. When they are running the operation business in the 10 branches, ideally in the system, see, company is only one. Say ABC company. ABC company, ABC organization. This is a company name, this is the organization name. So this ABC organization is doing the business in 10 locations. That means say 10 branches they have. Now reality, what they do, in each branch, how much expense they are spending, how much the revenue they are generating, that definitely they have to track. So when we do the implementation, the 10 branches related to one company only. But in the chart of accounts, the 10 branches we take as a 10 companies. Each branch we take as a one company. Okay, each branch we take as a one company. So that's how we have to take the company's information to chart of accounts. That means what level you want to track the transactions, very detailed level, and what level you want to produce the reports. And along with that, yes, this information also you can include. But out of all the segments, one segment you have to select as a primary, the major, important. Finally, if this is the case, 10 branches means branch wise you have to produce the reports for sure. So you have to understand how the branch is doing, how much expense we are spending, how much revenue are generating, and how many assets the branch has, how much profitability you are able to make from that each and every branch. That's how you have to track. So that is the reason out of all the segments what you have in your chart of accounts, one you have to make as a primary segment. Okay, you have to make as a primary segment. So that segment level only each and every transaction should get balanced. What is the meaning of balancing the transaction? That you can see in the system. But here as a point you can take, okay, so always just you can go with as a best practice one balancing segment. You can go with more than one also. That flexibility we have, that we'll see when we are creating in the system. But as a best practice, one balancing segment you have to use. Generally, the one balancing segment is company. What level you want to balance each and every transaction? What level you want to control each and every transaction which you are going to create? Which is the primary here. If we take this example, branches. Branch wise, you want to create the transaction. That's it. Within the branch, what department account is definitely will select. What segregation you want to go branch wise, that you can take as a balance segment. And definitely we should suggest future segments. The second point is, okay, future segments. When you do the implementation, we should suggest minimum one future segment. Okay, that's all about client interest, but as a consultant we should suggest. That's always good practice. Okay, we have to suggest one or two future segments for the client. If you don't suggest future segments now, later if they ask we need one more segment, if you say you cannot add, it is not recommended to add, in that case that will be turned into a big issue. Since we are going to design the solution to the client, we have to understand there could be some need of new segments in the future also based on the business expansion, or I mean it may be expansion or the acquisition what the company will do. With the different reasons there could be new segments requirement, that also you should just consider now itself, and you have to should be able to forecast and you have to suggest to the client. So if no future segments in the chart of accounts, if any client required one more segment in the future, that need to be done as a separate project again, which we call as redesigning the chart of accounts. It's not a small task. Okay, it should be done as a separate chart of account redesigning activity. Okay, again it will you have to invest time and resource should work for it. Many things need to be taken care. So as a best practice, we have to suggest the future segments. Okay, and so other points is, what are the chart of accounts you are designing that should meet their reporting requirements? Okay, as per the reporting requirement, on what base they want to produce the reports, those elements only you have to select into chart of accounts. Okay, that we call as per the reporting requirements. Okay, we have to consider reporting requirements. Okay. So when you are designing the chart of accounts, we have to consider the reporting requirements of the client. And again, you should not create the segments in the chart of accounts which would support only specific application. Okay. So say don't use segments for specific application usage. That means what are the segments you are going to create within the chart of accounts? That segment should not be very specific to application. It should be useful in multiple applications. Okay. Another important point is primarily account. When we are going to maintain the accounts, it's always good practice for reporting purpose, create parent and child relation. Okay. You have asset accounts, liability accounts, okay, expense accounts, revenue accounts. When we are going to create many accounts, accounts will be classified into type of accounts. So if you want to know the total, all the expenses which you spent in this month for so and so company, instead of selecting all accounts, for all accounts, if you give one parent account, easily you can find out, do the results. You can select that parent account and it will show for all that relevant expense accounts, whatever the expense parent account you will create, easily you can find out the results, how much total expense you spent by using the so-and-so expense accounts. So that when you are working on system, this point also you'll understand. For now, just make a note. So what you have to consider. That means when you are going to create the chart of accounts, within that, what are the values you create? Okay, you can maintain the parent accounts. Parent and child. These are the child accounts, direct accounts. So you identified 10 expense accounts. For 10 expense account, you create one account called as parent account, say total expense. Under that, you can take the all expense account. So under that, you will take this admin expenses expense account, travel expenses expense account. This is how this will become parent account, this will become child. Tomorrow, if you want to know how much admin expense you spent, you can select admin expense account and you can check. If you want to check how much you spent for travel expense, you can select. If you want to see how much total expense you spent irrespective of admin or travel expense, in that case, you have to select admin and travel both, then only you can see. Instead of selecting both, if you have a parent account called as total expense, if you select total expense without selecting these two, system will display these two accounts related amounts under this total expense. You may have many accounts like this. Say for example, okay, you have total, say for example, 7 expense accounts. Here names are same, but just consider as a 7. If you want to know by using the 7 accounts how much expense you spent in this month, instead of selecting 7 accounts, if you select total expense, which is parent, the total amount what you spent against this 7 account, system will display with this. That is the use of parent account. So that definitely we have to suggest to the client to use the parent and child relation within the values which we maintain as a segment values. Even companies also, you can have a company called as parent company. Under that, these 3 will be there. Across these 3 companies, how much you spent in this month, if you want to know, or how much revenue you generate, instead of selecting 1, 2, 3 accounts, you can select the parent company. It will display the 3 company related information. The same way departments also. For everything, you can create parent and child relation. Okay. So that as a best practice, we have to suggest the client. Say parent and child. We'll work on all these points as a part of chart of accounts creation and a few other concepts. We'll touch all these, what we are discussing, everything we'll touch before we go and perform those activities. We are trying to understand. Yep. Fine. So these are the points, and there are a few more points. Even if I explain now, you cannot understand. You have to see few concepts as per our discussions and the system. Then I'll add few more points to here. Okay, to this best practices. As of now, these are the points we have to understand. Okay, out of all the segments, one you have to choose as a primary segment, which level you want to balance the transactions, and future segments we should recommend to the client, and the chart of accounts which you are designing that should meet the client business reporting requirements, and don't use the segments, okay, which would be specific for application. Don't use segments which are specific to application, specific to particular application, and just go with the parent and child relation when you are maintaining the values within the chart of accounts. Okay, so these are the points we have to consider. I'll just add two three other points also as a best practices once we understand few other concepts, so that that makes sense if you discuss those. Otherwise, now if I say something that is not introduced, you cannot understand. So these are the few points you have to understand. Any questions here, please? Okay. So here, instead of selecting company, this segment you can take as a branch also. Some clients use this name as a branch, since branch wise they are going to record the transaction. Instead of recording as a taking segment name as a department, this you can take as a cost center. Ideally departments, okay, we call it cost centers. Okay. Here, instead of taking as account, this you can take as a GL account also. So this all we are going to create in the GL. The same accounts can be used across all the applications. This you can call as GL accounts. Sometimes what happens is, say for example, you have a 10 branches. Ideally, we just purchase from the supplier, will sell to the customer. Sometimes one branch may purchase from another branch. In that case, if you want to track those transactions very detailed level to produce the reports, which branch is purchasing from another branch, or I'll say branch 1 is purchasing from which branches, branch 2 is purchasing from which other branches. If you want to track detail level each and everything in the system, you can have one segment called as intercompany segment. Okay, you can have one segment called as intercompany. Okay, say company 1 is purchasing something from company 2. Company 1 is purchasing from company 2. This is how you can record the transaction. So this sort of transaction internally takes place. We don't deal with the suppliers or customers. Within the organization, across the branches, which you call as companies, you may perform the transaction. If you want to track those and if you want to produce the reporting accordingly, you can have a segment called as intercompany. Okay, that's how you can have. In the same way, you can have a segments like locations also if you want. Okay. And you can have segment like project. The client is doing the projects for their customers. Okay, you can have a segment called as project. This is how just it totally depends on client. When you sit with the client, we'll talk to them. So what elements you want to capture for your reporting and all. So we'll sit and we'll discuss with the client, then they'll come up with the points. So this is the key information which you want to capture. Then we'll tell them, yes, this is what you have, the same you have to take as a segments by using the chart of accounts concept. These are all points we have to discuss. Okay. But when you are just designing these points, we have to remember accordingly. We have to suggest to the client, and they'll just come back to us saying that this is what we need, this is what we don't need. If client is asking, we need suppliers, customers, items, etc. into chart of account, you can tell them. So chart of account we have to design to support multiple application related data tracking, not for specific application. The suppliers details you can track very much detail level, and the payables purchasing not required to include it in the chart of account. These are all points we have to discuss. It is not just a one-day decision making activity. So when we start the implementation, we propose some chart of accounts. This is how you can use the chart of account. Again, they'll ask, we need so and so segment, so, and we'll sit for discussions and we'll It may take a couple of months to finalize. Side by side, you will be working on many other activities, but when it comes to chart of accounts, it may take 1 month or 2 months for finalization. So by using the chart of account, how they can record the transaction, how the reporting can be produced, everything we have to show them. Anyway, we are going to learn all those points. So any other questions here, please?
So in case of intercompany, the segment values will be same as the company segment values?
That we'll discuss when you deal with that. There is no term I introduced as the segment values. Okay, values we are discussing, not value set.
Not value set. I'm asking segment values will be same as company segment values?
Correct. So with
okay.
See, we discussed between the branches what transactions are happening. That means how many branches they have, the same we'll have here, because this is not other company. Same values are same.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So values will be same. I'm sorry, I thought you are value set. So that is the reason I said.
No.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about company being called as balancing segment, right? So in the system, do we mark that as a balancing segment, or is it just theoretical?
Exactly. We mark it.
Okay.
We have to make the system to understand which is the balancing segment. What is the primary segment within our chart of accounts that we have to mark.
Okay. So based on balancing segments, there are some reporting.
Yeah. Everything will be balanced. All the transactions need to be balanced with the primary segment, which we are calling as balancing segment. This would be much clearer once we get into the system. But now just introduction, the terminology are few basic things which can be discussed and we can understand in the stage that we are trying to understand. But once we do the application and perform some activity, it would be more clear.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions, please? So still there are a few more points. Very soon we'll come to know about those points also related to chart of accounts. Because certain discussions are pending. Once we discuss, we can connect those points with this chart of accounts. So any other questions from anyone, please, to understand this chart of accounts? Any questions, please? Okay, fine, no questions. So primarily these are the points you have to understand. Okay, done. Now to create the transaction, we require date, the details, amount. This is what we discussed. To capture the date, we need calendar, right? To address the amount belongs to which currency, we require currency information. And to capture the details of each and every transaction, which is required for reporting, we have a chart of accounts concept. Okay, chart of accounts concept. So calendar, currency, chart of accounts. If you notice, everything is starting with the C. Calendar, currency, chart of accounts. So for this chart of accounts, short name is COA. Now these three, okay, we require to record the transaction. So instead of saying we need calendar, currency, chart of accounts to record the transaction in the system, simply you can say we need 3 C's. Simply you can say we need 3 C's to record the transaction. 3 C's means calendar, currency, chart of accounts. If these 3 C's are ready in the system, you can create the transactions in GL application. Okay. If calendar, currency, chart of accounts are ready, if these 3 C's are ready, you can create the transactions only in the GL application. So along with the GL, we have many other applications. As a part of P2P and O2C cycle we discussed, generally we record the business transactions in the subledger applications only. In GL, we don't record transactions. Only some adjustment entries you may pass. Okay. If any purchases, we record in the purchasing application. Any invoices and payments, we record in the payables application. Any sales, we record in the order management application. Any billing and receipts, we record in the receivables application. Any assets will record in the GL, FA. Okay. Finally, all the data will send to GL and will prepare the reports. So most of the transactions, more than 99% of the transactions, we record in the subledger application. But if you want to record any transaction GL, these 3 C's are required. If you want to record the transactions in the payables or receivables, these 3 are not enough. Okay, these 3 are not enough. If you have these 3 C's, okay, if you have these 3 C's, you can record the transactions in GL. So along with these 3 C's, we need one more component called as accounting method. Okay, or you can call it as subledger accounting method. Along with these 3 C's, if you use one more component called as accounting method, by using these 4, you can create the transactions in any application. So why we need accounting method? When you create the invoice and the payables, system has to create the accounting entry. Automatically has to create accounting entry. Which account should be debited, which accounting entry should be credited in case of invoice. When you make the payment, system has to create the accounting entries automatically. Manually, you don't need to do anything. System will create automatically accounting. When you make the payment against the invoice, system has to create accounting. Which account should get debit, which account should get credit, that should be done by system. So in case of invoice, which accounting system should create? In case of payment, which accounting system should create? In receivables, when you create the sales invoice, which account system has to generate? When you create the receipt, which accounting entry system has to generate? All the rules are available within this accounting method. Okay, so you can call it a subledger accounting method also. Let's name it as just accounting method. In the accounting method, there will be rules, accounting rules. In which application, for which transaction, which accounting entry system has to generate, all rules were already created. So if you use the accounting method also, then only you can create the transactions in the subledger applications. Other than GL, all applications we call as subledger applications. Okay. By using the subledger applications means other than GL, all applications are subledgers. So AP, ER, CM, FA, PO, OM, so on, many. Okay. Here, this 3 we are calling as 3 C's. And what Oracle says is, in the accounting method, ignore first A, consider second letter C. Now say these are the 4 C's. For accounting method, the accounting method you can call as subledger accounting method. The accounting method where we required in the subledger applications only. That is reason the accounting method which we use in the subledger applications, that method we are calling as subledger accounting method. Means the subledger applications, to create the accounting, there is a methodology which system will follow with the help of rules that we are calling as subledger accounting method. Okay, we'll look into this subledger accounting method, how Oracle is providing. Okay, if you want to do the changes, what points you have to consider as per business requirement, that we can do. Ideally, you don't need to change what Oracle is providing enough. If some client requirement is changing, creating accounting with a different fashion, in that case we can change it. We'll look into that when you are working on the subledger applications. I'll take you through this concept also. Okay, so the accounting method you can call as subledger accounting method. There is a technical term called as conventions, accounting conventions. Don't consider conventions. From conventions, Oracle is taking 4th C. Okay, you can refer the Oracle documentation also. They says in the accounting method, they are taking C from this second letter. Okay, so this 4 components, if your 4 components are ready in the system, you can create the transaction, the subledger applications. So instead of keeping these components separately, what you can do is by grouping these 3 C's or 4 C's, you can create the primary ledger. Okay, by grouping these 3 C's or 4 C's, you can create the primary ledger. PL, primary ledger. So when you are creating the primary ledger, you can select these 3. You can create the primary ledger. If you create the primary ledger, the 3 C's, you can record the transactions. You can use that primary ledger to record the transactions only in GL. If you create the primary ledger by selecting these 4 components, you can create the transactions in the subledger applications also. If you have a primary ledger, the 4 C's, you can create the transactions in GL as well as subledger applications. If you create the primary ledger only with these 3 components, you can create transactions only in the GL. You cannot create in any these applications. When you create transactions in these applications, system will look for accounting method to create the accounting entries for those subledger transactions. So this is the point we have to understand. Now the summary of this all the discussion is, to create the transactions in the system, we need primary ledger. With the help of primary ledger only, we can create the transaction. Inside of primary ledger, what we can have: calendar to capture the date, currency to address the amount, chart of account to capture the description, accounting method to generate the accounting entries for subledger applications. So this is what we have to understand. Okay, any questions here, please? So ideally for one country, one primary ledger is enough. Okay, if you are going to implement for US client, so one primary ledger is enough. Okay, one country, one primary ledger is enough. If they want to create more than one, yes, possible. You can create more than one also. So those points also we'll discuss in the next session. We have a separate concept to take these points. So for now, simple point is, for each country, we have to create one primary ledger. That country related all the transactions will record in that primary ledger only. Any questions here, please? Any questions from anyone? Okay, no questions. So once you create the primary ledger by selecting these 4 components, you cannot change your calendar, you cannot change your currency, you cannot change your chart of accounts. The accounting method, whatever you are going to select within the primary ledger, that you can change at any point of time. So that is the reason, once you create the primary ledger, once any client will start using the primary ledger, later if you want to change the calendar, you cannot change. You cannot change these 3 components. That is a one-time decision making. Once you make the decision, so which calendar, which currency, which chart of accounts you want to use, those we have to use permanently within the chart of account. There is no option to change. The beginning of the session, somebody was saying like we can change the calendar. No, it is not possible. You cannot change. So that is a point we have to notice. If any requirement to change, critical requirement, then you may take Oracle support, Oracle help, they may change. But as per standard product, you cannot change. There is no functionality to change. Since everything will be in the Oracle control, they may help you as per your requirement. For that, there will be big task which you have to follow. You have to take care of many things. Since the previous calendar days exist, accordingly transactions are recorded, it will disturb many things. Still you want to proceed, Oracle may help, or else they may say no. As per product functionality, you cannot change the calendar. Any questions here, please?
I have one question. So the accounting method rules, when it comes,
Accounting method inside you can have a rules. Accounting method rules not, that is the name. Just simple, just information purpose. I entered the record and given the rule. That's all. Accounting method. That's all.
So like we have one set of chart of accounts. Okay. Like whatever we decide, 4 segment, 5 segment, or 8 segment, whatever. Now for accounting method, I have question. Is it like each subledger have its own accounting method, like AP has different AR, CM, FA, FPO,
No.
etc., or it's a common thing?
In one primary ledger, you can take only one calendar, one currency, one chart of accounts, and one accounting method. So this primary ledger, in wherever you use, the same accounting method is applicable. That's it. Okay. This primary ledger, when you use in all these applications, with inside of that primary ledger, whatever the accounting method you have, the same will be applicable for all. Okay. For each application, you cannot have a separate accounting method. Accounting method system will use from the primary ledger. In primary ledger, you can have only one. So with that primary ledger, if you record the transactions in AP, ER, and CM, for all system will use the same accounting method. You cannot have separate for application wise.
Okay. So can we have multiple primary ledgers as well? Like,
yes, if you want, you can have, but there won't be any business requirement ideally. We look at any implementations which happened or happening. Only one. In which scenarios you may go with a multiple primary ledger. What are the reasons? That we'll discuss in the tomorrow session. Because in tomorrow we are going to talk about enterprise structure and all. So how we will design the solution for the client the first time when you do the implementation. There we'll discuss all these points.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay.
So Lakshman, so for a holding company, say in USA and a subsidiary in Germany, what would be the primary ledger for USA? Is one primary ledger, and the company in the subsidiary in
primary ledger. Okay. Each country one primary ledger minimum.
Okay, so the subsidiary will have its own primary ledger, and
yes.
then the holding company here. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so then the primary ledger is assigned at a company level, or you were talking about that company segment, right? So is that assigned at that company segment then?
No. So see, again, that is a different point which you can understand in the tomorrow session. That falls under enterprise structure, how we'll design the solution. Now try to understand this independent concept, what is a primary ledger. Your questions are valid, but a lot of discussion is required for that. That we are going to see in the tomorrow session. Yeah.
Okay.
How we do the mapping. What we take with what. Okay. What we consider to take into chart of account, how we'll take the companies, how we map. These all points we'll discuss in the tomorrow session as a part of enterprise structure.
Right, and hopefully a little bit more clarification on this accounting method as well.
Accounting method, see, you don't get clarity now for sure. Only the point is, there will be rules how accounting entries need to be generated. Say you will create invoice in the payables. When you create invoice in the payables, there should be debit and credit lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of the debit and credits? Otherwise, you'll see in the system no issues. So how accounting?
No, I am.
You know, right?
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Create the invoice in the payables. Okay, system has to create debit entry and credit entry. Accounting entry it has to create, right?
Yeah.
From where it has to take debit account, from where it has to take credit account, the rules will be inside of the accounting method.
Okay.
Don't try to understand now, simple point. Now we are not discussing. We have a separate session on accounting method. Just I am trying to throw you light on that, saying that purpose. Okay. Accounting method, system will create the accounting entries. How system will create accounting entries, we'll see and we'll discuss how that is in the application.
Yeah.
For now, take simple point. There will be rules inside of the accounting method to generate the accounting entries in the subledger application. we not yet started with application also. First of all, we should not focus on sub-ledger application, since that is one of the component as a part of primary ledger we are discussing. That's all. This we separate concept. We'll work on it. I'll just open the accounting method inside how it is, how Oracle is providing also. I'll just show you and I'll explain you everything. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do that. Any other questions, please? Okay. So this is all about primary ledger. Okay. For each country, we have to create the separate primary ledger. So if you are doing the implementation for 10 countries, minimum 10 primary ledgers. For each country, separate primary ledger we have to create. Why we have to create separate primary ledgers for each country? Any guess on that?
The currency would be different.
Yes, that is the primary point. Rest can be same also, right? Okay. Two countries, same financial year is possible, right? Reality, that is the case. Yes, you can have a same calendar, same chart of accounts, same accounting method you can use, but currency is different. Because of that reason, you should go with a separate primary ledger. In one primary ledger, you can have only one currency. If you are implementing for 3 countries, say 3 countries financial year is same, accounting method you can use the same, and chart of accounts, one chart of account you can use for multiple primary ledgers also. Reality, that happens. Okay, we will discuss those points also. So in tomorrow's session, and only the difference is currency. Because currency is different, you have to go with the separate primary ledgers. Okay, so rest can be same, but no use. You cannot go with one primary ledger. Since currency is different from country to country, each country we have to go with a separate primary ledger. Yep.
Also, the tax code could be different for each country.
Sorry?
Tax codes, taxation laws.
Taxation would be different, but that you can manage with a different solution. Ledger separate, not required. Just first element is currency.
Currency, yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
currency. Yeah, the taxation and all you can set up how you require. But in which currency you want to report the taxation or you want to record the transactions, that's a primary thing. So when currency is different, total game will be changed.
Yeah.
Fine.
Lakshman?
Yeah.
So in some of the companies, they use functional currency as same USD across all the entities. So what could be the scenarios where they consider that it has to be having same currency across all the primary ledgers, even though the org is in India or
that we
the
call
company is in India?
Reporting. Okay, what you can do is, in this primary ledger, the country specific currency you can have, this all ledgers can report in single currency. That is the scenario you are just talking about.
No, I have seen clients having a primary ledger functional currency as USD.
Okay.
And rest all the they keep on setting up of the secondary ledger and the reporting ledger in their local currencies. Like example, US INR, right?
See, that is a reverse scenario. It's a completely reverse scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
That is a complete reverse scenario. You generally you don't find. It's an exceptional case. Okay, country specific currency only we should have a ledgers, and accordingly they have to do the reporting. Now they are doing very reverse manner. Instead of doing like that, they can country specific ledgers they can create. So in which currency they have to report. Further, they can use the reporting ledger or secondary ledger. Since you are aware of those terms, I am referring the same. Okay, they can use reporting ledger or secondary ledger or consolidation ledgers as per the reporting requirements. What you think is a totally reverse case.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah,
so I just wanted.
That's very much exceptional. You don't see that kind of practices where most of the clients are using. So country specific ledgers only we have to create. So what they are doing is they have a reporting requirements. For that reason, they are making the users to create in the foreign currency, right? India, they are doing the business. If they are creating the transaction, US, there is a foreign currency transaction only.
Yes, that's
That
correct.
will be converted into local currency. Reality, you have to create the transaction, the local currency that need to be converted in which currency you require the data. Right? So that's exceptional. If some client says we need like this only, we cannot convince few clients. That might be the scenario where they implemented in that way. 99.999 you see the scenario where we create the ledgers, country specific functional currency. If any reporting, will go with the other ledgers. That's all.
So are there any pros and cons in doing that in a reverse way, like because I have been asked these questions.
That is not at
in,
all recommended. That is not at all recommended.
No, I do understand, but when we create in that way, right, there will be FX differences when they encounter, which is not advisable, like these things, right?
This point I want to explain to you only. Okay, other people can ignore if they
Yeah.
want to just try to understand. Understand. If you don't understand, ignore it. Anyway, we have all these classes we will be discussing. These are separate concepts. Say running the business in US. Okay. So say USA, India, UAE. So in these cases, we have to create country specific ledgers. USA primary ledger. I'm writing shortly. USA primary ledger, India primary ledger, UAE primary ledger. Now, whatever the transactions, whatever the business they do in USA, the transaction will be ideally in the USD currency only, right? They have to record in the USD.
Right.
Okay, their requirement is they want to consolidate the data in USD. They want to do the consolidation in USD. So ideally, they have to record the transactions in USA, USD. Okay, they can send the data to ledger called as consolidation ledger or reporting ledger. There are multiple ledgers based on the business requirement. They can use it. This they can represent USD ledger, primary ledger data will be in USD on. Here they'll record the transactions in INR. This data they require in which currency, they can take it. In UAE primary ledger, they'll record the transactions in AED. So now in these three ledgers, since they are doing the business in the respective countries, in local currencies only you have to record the transactions. So now what they can do is the data, whatever they're recording, they can translate. Okay, they can translate. Here, their consolidation requirement is in USD. Say they want to do the consolidation in USD. Consolidation USD. So in that case,
okay.
one second, let me complete. I'll take your questions. So here, consolidation requirement in USD. In that case, data already in USD. So do you need to do any translation? No. Directly they can send the data from here to this consolidation ledger. You can create consolidation ledger. They can send to consolidation ledger since they are going to do consolidation here. Here no translation is required because USD data is going to consolidation ledger which is in USD. So here they have to convert the data from INR to USD. They'll send to this consolidation ledger. Here they'll convert the data from AED to USD. So from these three countries, they'll get the data into consolidation ledger. They can prepare the reports. Now, as you are mentioning, what they are doing is they are creating. So USA ledger, they're recording the transaction in USD. They're creating India ledger. Ledger means primary ledger. They're creating transactions in USD. They created UAE ledger. Okay, UAE ledger, they are creating in transactions in USD. In this scenario, what they'll do is, okay, what is the possibility of doing is, whatever the transaction they are creating, okay, that is there in the USD only. Here they don't need to do anything. For India primary ledger, they are recording the transaction in USD. That's completely reverse, not acceptable, but still they are doing. In this case, they'll convert USD to INR. That information they'll maintain in the ledger called as reporting ledger or secondary ledger, or by using the translation, they'll maintain in the consolidation ledger. Okay, a consolidation ledger is not required. Here separately they have to maintain. They'll use the reporting ledger or secondary ledger. Now here also they'll convert, okay, AED USD to AED. Okay, so they'll use the reporting ledger or secondary ledger. Here if you see, as per country, the data is maintained separately in the respective countries. Finally, all the data they are getting here. Reality, you have to enter like that. If you need the same data in the single currency, you can get into consolidation ledger. Here they are doing reverse. Everything they are creating in single currency, that means they are consolidating the data into single currency. Okay, in the ledger wise. And again, they are segregating the data currency wise by using the reporting ledger or second ledger. It's a reverse practice. Okay, we don't know who suggested why they asked this, but you don't find this kind of usage of ledgers in multiple countries, single ledger. Later they will convert into local currencies by using the reporting ledger, secondary ledger. Exceptional.
Lakshmanji, what is functional currency? Is it the currency of the country in which company is operating?
Yeah, we
or
discussed in
currency
today's session.
most of the transactions?
No. Today's session we discussed. I think you joined late. Have you attended these discussions?
Yes.
Yeah, then still you can not ask this
previously,
question.
long back, I worked for a company where it's not ERP related.
No. Simple. Let's focus on this point. Functional currency is nothing but country local currency. In which country you are operating the business, that country local currency we call it functional currency.
Okay, it's not the currency in which most of the transactions happen. Am I right?
No. Most of the transactions not. If you are running the business in India, your functional currency is always INR. That's all.
Okay. So though most of the transactions are in USD still.
Then for US functional currencies.
No, India.
Okay.
In India,
you have a suppliers and customers from US, but still your local currency is local currency only.
Yes. My receivables, payables are in USD, and my revenues and expenses and all.
Where you are operating the business, from where you are operating? You are operating
from India. From India.
Okay, what is the currency for India? INR. That is only your functional currency. 99% transactions you may record in the different currencies, but still your functional currency is INR.
Okay. My balance sheet mostly undergoes exchange rate.
No, exchange rates, yes. All those foreign currency transaction balances will convert into INR and you will prepare the reports in INR only. Correct.
Okay. Actually, I was working for an organization where we import and sell it to the foreign customers. So mostly the revenues, expenses, everything happen. 99% happen in the foreign transactions only, except smaller piece of petty cash and salaries.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Okay, it's not based on most of the transaction. It's based on the entity represents which country. Okay, where the entity is registered. Yep. Fine. So this is the case which you are addressing. So this generally we don't find anywhere. That's your experience. So this is how they might be doing. But it is not recommended, and there is no benefit by doing like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions, please? Others don't try to understand this scenario at all. Okay, once you understand the concept, you'll come to know what is the reporting ledger, secondary ledger. The question who writes, they are aware of these reporting ledger, secondary ledger, and consolidation ledgers. These are different concepts which we'll cover in the general ledger application. Any other questions, please? Fine, seems to no questions. Okay. So still we'll just add few points related to this chart of accounts going forward. Okay. So tomorrow session, let's talk about enterprise structure. When you do the implementation, how we have to design the solution for that client to bring their system, the business environment into system environment. Okay. We'll focus on those points. Once we understand, we can start with the system. Okay. Still, you have enough time to understand many things what we are discussing now. Don't think we discussed. Okay, if there is a case, don't think we discussed, I could not get few points. Okay, still we have a lot of time to understand where we'll be really working on those. Just to introduce the terminology and the basic concept of so and so what we are discussing, we are just before, instead of jumping into the application, we are discussing. That's it. Okay, if you can understand at least 50% from our discussion, that is okay. Remaining 50% you'll understand when we are really doing that activity in the system. Okay. But try to understand max what you can. If you have any questions, you can ask me. So, any other questions, please?
Somewhere in the chart of accounts, Lakshman, we have discussed about parent account.
Correct.
Like for expenses. Yeah. So for reporting purposes, how does it matter if it is a parent account or is it an individual expense account?
See, when you are creating the transaction, you will create with individual accounts only.
Okay.
Okay. I want to check how much admin expense, travel expense, food expense, etc. expense. Say I have 10 expense accounts. When I want to check how much is spent across the 10 accounts, I have to select 1, 2, 3 up to 10 accounts, right?
Correct.
Instead of selecting 10, if I group those 10 into under one parent account called as total expense, I'll select only parent account called as total expense. It will give the results. Okay. Yes or no?
So actually I was trying to understand, but when we are storing those transactions as part of chart of accounts structure, we are using individual accounts, not the total expense.
Got you. Yeah, correct. Individual accounts. When you create the parent, automatically the parent will take the balances from all the childs. That's how it will get stored. So that if you select the parent account, it will show all the child account sum of the balances. That's how it works.
Okay, but chart of accounts will still have just the account, but it could be a parent or total. I mean, child.
Both will have.
Anything.
In chart of accounts, this will have this child values as well as parent values. For this parent, which are childs, we have to specify the relationship.
Okay.
Yep. That's how it works. You can. We'll see in the system. Okay. We'll see
Okay.
the system.
Yeah.
So you can. It would be complete understand.
Okay.
If no questions, we can wind up for today. If any questions, please.
Hi Lakshman, this is Jyotsna here. So this is my first session that I'm attending.
Okay.
I started going through the videos for the previous sessions.
Okay.
So my question is, has the instance been used till now, or we haven't used the instance till now?
In the third and fourth session we used. This is the fifth session.
Okay.
Okay. In the first session, second session, so completely discussions. And
okay.
Third and fourth, yes, we used instance maybe for max maybe 1 hour, I guess. Okay.
Okay.
Rest of session we focused on the discussion. And today's session no instance. Even tomorrow session also no instance.
Okay. So will you be sharing the instance details with me?
Yeah, sure. You can keep in touch with the team. Okay. You can get those details from them.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine.
What about these notes, Lakshman?
Sorry?
These notes will be shared. What about the notes that you are taking here? Would they be shared as well?
Yeah. This I'll share. I'll create the Google Drive today or tomorrow. So I'll start placing the videos in the drive itself and the sheet also. After completing every session, the updated sheet I'll place in the drive itself. You can access the sheet also. You can download.
That helps.
Yeah, you can download the videos also. Download the videos. You can download the sheet. Fine.
Jyotsna here again. So I'm not sure if I have access to Google Drive, this Google Drive that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what you can talk to the team. They can help you to get the drive or
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so all access related issues they will resolve, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Fine. So any other questions, please? So no questions, then we'll connect tomorrow same time, and we'll pick the concept called as enterprise structure, how that can be finalized for the client, what points we have to understand to be good enough with that concept. So that's all for today. Thank you all. Have a good day and good night. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.